This is going to be the entire lesson for combining functions, so hopefully this will help. If you found it confusing or if you were absent that day, then you can access this lesson. It'll be a little bit longer video because I'm going to cover everything in the lesson. Speaking of the lesson, here's what we're going to cover in this video. We're going to be combining two functions together by either multiplying, adding, subtracting. We're also going to go through some composition of functions. So we'll get that. I like to use this one whenever I go shopping. A lot of times it'll tell me which discount to take first. We'll kind of get through that toward the end. All right, well, if I asked you this one, I told you that x equals 7, y equals 14, and I said, what does x plus y equal? Well, we know x is 7 and y is 14, so we just need 7 plus 14, which is 21. And if I asked, what does x times y equal, all you're going to do is go 7 times 14, which is 98. Well, we're going to do the same thing with functions. If I said that this function h of x, remember that we say these h of x, this is not h times x, but this is just kind of a notation for functions. If h of x equals 12 and g of x equals 5, well, what does h of x plus g of x equal? We're going to use the same process that we just did, so that's going to be our 12 plus 5, which is 17. Next, I can ask you, what is h of x times g of x? And all we're simply going to do is plug both of these in. This is a 12, this is 5. 12 times 5 is 60. So that's basically what we're doing here. We're going to get a lot more complicated than that. But whatever these two things equal, if we're asking to add them together, we're just going to add those two things together. Multiplying, we're going to multiply those two together. Now we go with this one, which is a slight variation here. Negative 3 times h of x. Well, h of x is 12, so it's negative 3 times 12. And negative 3 times 12 is negative 36. All right, I want you to try these two. And this exact same thing we were doing. Okay, this is our g of x here. This is our h of x, and this is asking us to add. So essentially I'm going to add this one to this one. Remember, when we're combining like terms, they have to have the same variable, x, and the same exponent. So I cannot add these two together. I cannot combine those two. I can combine this, negative 3x squared, and 5x squared. I can combine those two. That would be okay. Also, look at number 2 real quick. These two are almost identical. The only difference is this one is a subtraction in between. You'll see it written sometimes g of x plus h of x. Sometimes you'll see it written kind of in this format, which is a g plus h of x. But they mean the exact same thing. So go ahead and try both of these. Push pause on the video now. After you've obtained your answer, come back and push play. Check your answers. Okay, the biggest thing is just making sure that we can combine the terms that are alike. On this second one, it got a little bit more complicated only because we had the subtraction sign. We have to remember that the subtraction sign applies to everything inside of here. So we're going to, that turned everything, these were all negative before, that turned every one of those positive. After we distribute that subtraction sign, then we can combine these like terms. Okay, so we're talking about real life here. The school has to purchase some calculators and some iPads. The cost of a new calculator is this, 95x plus 10. This would be like if it costs $95 per calculator plus $10 to ship it. So then the cost of a new iPad here, we're thinking $500 here depending on the size and the memory on it. Okay, so it says what's the cost to purchase both the calculator and the iPad? This would be a function we could use if we knew that every teacher needed an iPad and a calculator. So what is f plus h of x? So here are two. We're basically just going to add those two together. Go ahead and push pause now, work through the solution, then come back and push play. Check your answer. This should have been your answer. 595x plus 10, so this is $595 essentially, times the number of teachers plus $10 to ship everything. So hopefully you're getting a little bit better on that. I would like you to try both of these two. Now this one gets a little bit different because this is g divided by h. So this is our g here divided by h. But I'd like you to try it. Push pause now, work through the answer. After you've obtained your solution, come back and push play. Check your answers. All right, now in this one here, it's important to understand that we cannot reduce these two. I understand that there's an x on top and bottom. But because there's an addition sign here, x plus 2, that prohibits us from just crossing these two off. It would change the value. So we just leave it just like that is fine. Okay, now these are real similar to the ones you just did. The only difference is now we've got this 2 in front here. And this 2 basically means whatever g of x is, I'm going to multiply that by 2, then add it to h of x. So I'd like you to try both of these. After you've obtained your answer, come back and push play. Check your answers here. Okay, and that's all we basically did. 2 times 2x is going to give me 4x, plus x gives me 5x. Same thing down here, we have 5 times 2x, so that gives me my 10x, and then 3, and then remember this negative 3 here, we can distribute that negative 3 to everything inside here. That'll give me negative 3x. Negative 3 times 6 is negative 18, is where that one came from. All right, let's try these two. After you've obtained your answer, come back and push play. Check your answer here. Okay, this first one is basically we're going to FOIL these two. Now, we've got to remember that x cubed times x is x to the 4th power. Okay, that's what trips up students sometimes. And again, on this one, we've got to remember to distribute this negative to everything inside there. This is a negative 2 times x gives me negative 2x. Negative 2 times negative 2 gives me a positive 4. All right, let's go ahead and try these two. I'll have you try both of these. After you've obtained your answers, come back and push play. Check your answers here. Hopefully you're starting to kind of get the hang of this. This second one again is foiling because these are two multiplying two binomials together. You can FOIL that. You can also multiply in any method that you want. But foiling is the one that most people learned at that point. So now we're going to get into something that's different. And let's take a look here. See, I've got this one. It looks like hog here. We've got this open circle. Let's back up a step here. This was the previous problem that we just did. Notice how this one is a solid circle. This is g of x times h of x. Now let me fast forward here. This is something new. This is a composition of a function. And this is h of g of x. Okay, this is not hog, but h of g of x. Okay, and it can be written sometimes like this. Sometimes you'll see this, h of g of x. All right, well, let's look here, and what we're basically going to do, we're going to take this second part, whatever's listed second, in this case it's a g. We're going to take this g and we're going to plug it in into h. That sounds a little bit weird. Let's bring in h here. This is our h of x here, x plus 2. You notice this part in red, this is my x. This is what we're going to end up plugging this stuff in. So I take my g of x here, and I plug it in just right where this x is. I take this x squared and I plug that in right where this x is. Now remember, g came second, so whatever comes second, we take that entire quantity and we plug it right in here for this x. So that's why I have it in red here. So since this quantity was x squared, that means whenever I plug that in, that's going to be an x squared plus 2. Let's say, for instance, this quantity right here were x plus 3. Then right here it would go x plus 3 plus 2. Okay, so we're just plugging that in for whatever this component is right here. Well, that's really all we needed to do on this one. I can't simplify either one of these any further, so that is my answer. h of g of x is x squared plus 2. And that looks very, very difficult. It's going to take a little bit of practice. Let's try another one here that I'll go through before I'm going to let you practice one on your own. So here's the second one. Now this one is g of h of x. So because h is listed second here, now you'll sometimes see it written like this as well. But because h is listed second here, I'm going to take this h here and I'm going to plug that in right here for just where the x is, okay? I take this value, this x plus 2, and I plug it in just for where x is. This squared stays there. So we've got our g of x is x squared. So I'm going to take this amount here and I'm going to plug it right in here just for this x. So if I plug it in there, my h of x was x plus 2. Since h came second, I'm going to plug that whole quantity right here in for x. Now I just have to simplify it. X plus 2 squared. Now this one is not x squared plus 4. A lot of students do that, but they miss that portion of it. If you're going to actually FOIL these out, that's the same thing as x plus 2 times x plus 2, which would indeed give us x squared plus 4x plus 4 if you were to FOIL this one out. X squared plus 2x gives me my plus 4x and then plus 4. All right, so this one, it's going to take some practice. It's brand new. Most of you haven't seen these at all in the past. But basically, whatever's listed second, we're going to take that quantity and plug it in for the x value, only the x value, into the other one. Okay. All right, so here's some to practice on. So I'd like you to try both of these. Just real quick on this one, this f of x. So I'm going to take this entire quantity, f of x, and I'm going to take it and I'm going to plug it right in here for this x right here, only this x. All right, go ahead and try both of those. After you've obtained your answers, come back and push play. Check your answer here. Okay, you'll notice that I rewrote this h of x. So that's my h of x. Then I took this 2x and I plugged it right in for where that x was. So that's what gave me 2x minus 10, and there wasn't anything more that I could do for it. Now on the second one here, I took my h of x, this x minus 10, and I plugged it in right here only for where that x is, okay? So I had a 2x before, and I plugged this x minus 10 right in for this x. That's what gave me by the time I distributed my 2x minus 20. All right, try both of these. The second one is fairly tricky. So I'm just going to talk real briefly on that one. F of x. That means I'm going to take this entire quantity right here and plug that whole thing in right here just for just this x right here. Sounds a little bit complicated. Give it a try. Push pause now. After you've obtained your answers, come back and push play. Check your answers here. Okay, so this one, the g of x, this is the 4x minus 1. We just plugged that in right here for where the x value was. You can see that was my x value. Now it's a 4x minus 1. This second one here I want to talk about just for a second. So we've got 2x plus 3. Now, I'm going to plug that in for where the x is. So instead of writing x this time, I'm going to write 2x plus 3 because it's f is we're plugging in essentially to itself. Okay, so this is our composition of functions. We plug that right in, 2x plus 3. This gives me my 4x. 2 times 3 is 6. Now I'm going to combine like terms right here. 6 plus 3 is 9. That one is going to take a lot of practice. The more you do these, the easier they'll become. They won't be too difficult after a while. It's totally different from what we've done in the past. Okay, this is if Sears is having a sale, and they're having a sale of 10% off their appliances. In addition to that, Maytag's offering a $100 rebate if you purchase a new washing machine. So if X is to represent the sticker price of the washing machine. Okay, so we got this washing machine. If only the 10% discount applies, we need to find a function f of x. So a function that involves this x and including this 10% discount. Well, if it's a 10% discount, we can say x minus 0.1, that's 10%, x minus 0.1x, but then we got to simplify it, which would give us 0.9x. Right, because that's 10% discount, you're paying 90% of what the original price was. So 0.9x. All right, now what if we just did the rebate? X is the price of the washing machine. The rebate's $100, so that would be x minus 100. Okay, so the question is, they're having this sale. This is the price of the 10% discount. This is the price with the $100 rebate. F of g, okay, f of g, so we're going to take this g and plug it in here, represents applying the $100 rebate first, then calculating the 10% discount. The opposite, the opposite of that would be g of f of x. That means that we're going to take the 10% discount first, then the $100 rebate. Okay, so the question here is, which deal is better? Should we apply the 10% discount first, then receive the $100 rebate, or should we get the $100 rebate first, then take 10% off? Which one is going to cost us less as the consumer? Because if you get up there and maybe you're talking to a salesperson there and they're checking you out and they say, well, which one do you want to apply first? Then you need to know which one is going to benefit you the most, which one's going to cost you the least. All right, so let's calculate them both. I want you to go ahead and do that now. Let's calculate this g of x. G of x, plug that into f of x here. See if that's going to be cheaper. Or maybe doing this f of x here, like on the second one, plugging that quantity here in for this one, for this x. And let's see which one's going to be cheaper. Go ahead and try that now. After you've obtained your answers, come back and push play. So if we do the first one here, we take this f of g of x. We take this g of x. We plug that in for x right here. That gives us 0.9x minus 90. Now you can go 0.90, that's fine. Either way is okay. And this represents applying the $100 rebate, then the 10% discount. Here's what your formula would be. So let's do the second one then. If we apply the 10% first, then the $100 rebate. So we're going to take and plug this one here in for this. Okay, we're going to plug that in 0.9x. That means here's what we're going to end up being 0.90x minus 100. So which one's going to be cheaper here? Well, if you're buying this one, they're both can give you some sort of 10% off, but this one is also going to give you an additional $10 off. So it would be cheaper for you to pay if you applied the 10% discount first, then the $100 rebate, because you're getting an additional $10. You're getting the washing machine for cheaper. So that one is by far cheaper. All right, I'm going to give you one last one just to kind of see if you can do it or not. This one, both of these end up being a challenge for most students, but let's see if you can do these two. First one's not bad, but the second one is really where the challenge is at. So try both of these. After you've obtained your answer, come back and push play. Check your answers here. The first one, again, wasn't really too bad. This second one, boy, that becomes a little bit more of a challenge here. You can go through that and look through it a little bit closer and see which ones we've got here. Essentially, we're going to distribute this 9x cubed to everything inside, then the 12 to everything inside of this one as well. And that concludes this lesson. Hopefully that helped a little bit. I have also several other videos that have just very specific problems that you can work through as well. But hopefully this one helps a little bit.